Hello friends, it's Lionheart here, and we have had a developer update for 11.5, and oh, we finally get a dragon rework. We're covering all of the cards, we'll be going over all of the changes as well, some balance updates, and I think they're going to be pretty impactful to the overall competitive meta for sure. You know what? Definitely want to get into these nice and quick, but before we do, I want to let you know that our friends at Million Pugs, yes, Million Pugs, are back and sponsoring the channel, and they have a whole range of new stuff that you can get, not just in Gwent, but across multiple games and on Twitch in the form of literally Twitch vouchers, PlayStation Store credit, Xbox Store credit, and even games on GOG, all for just using Million Pugs. It's a browser extension that when you shop online, you get extra credits called Pugs. You can trade them for real rewards. It's amazing. And the 5 people commenting down below on this video, I'm going to give you 1,000 Pugs. All you have to do is click the link in the description, create yourself a Million Pugs account, let me know in the comments that you've done it, and of course let me know your favorite balance change as well. I will draw the winners and I'll contact you directly. So, without any further ado, I think we all know what we want. You know what you want. I know what I want. It is time for Dragon. Well, before we discuss dragons, we have to discuss lineage. It's a brand new keyword, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. At the start of the game, boost self by the number of dragons in your starting deck. Now, it's important to note, this is number of dragons, not number of dragons with lineage. The first thing that you'll notice and you'll probably see is all of the dragons are very high provision. While there will be an all-in dragon deck, I think, that will exist, I don't expect it to jump to being tier 1 meta. I'm of the opinion it's better than some people seem to think it's going to be. And I'll even give you a sneaky peek of the deck list that I'm building for this very idea. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. So, the first one, it is, of course, behind me here. It is Villain Trettenmirth. And if I've said that wrong, well, you can't tell me differently in the comments because I'd have to read it. So yay me. What's the first change? It is now 2 provisions more expensive for Villain Trettenmirth. It is now 13 provisions. But because it's gained lineage, it is already 1 power higher because, of course, it counts the dragons in the deck, including itself. Therefore, it gains 1 power. Okay. Timer 3. Destroy the highest power units on the battlefield, excluding dragons you control. This could potentially be really scary. Now, of course, the timer doesn't reset, not like a Saskia or a Meve, where it will reset and keep going, but it's multiple units on the board now, and there is no initiative with this card. That's crucial. So, if Villain Trettenmirth sticks, you've got plenty of time to set up exactly what you want to burn. There is no worries in the same turn. You haven't got to worry about misreading that and hitting initiative. It's a timer effect. This could be a lot of fun and could potentially very, very good. Now, is it going to be tier 1 meta? Probably not. Is there a deck out there in the world where this could fit in a non-dragon archetype? I think so. I think this one potentially really could. Interesting card. I can't wait to see it played. Next, we have the Okvist. Now, provisions, again, 2 more provisions, but lineage, so costs 2 more provisions. We are getting at least 1 more base power, and obviously, in reality, probably a lot more. I really like this change. Obviously, all of these changes are going from a position where the cards didn't really exist and were terrible to are definitely better versions. Whether or not they're going to be competitive, different story, but Okvist now, it's now going to be 7 power on board, which means you've got to save a lock for it, potentially, or heatwave it, which doesn't seem likely, but the beauty of Okvist now is it has real deploy value at 12 provisions, because it's effectively 7 power minimally, and I think Okvist is the kind of card you are probably running in with at least a couple more dragons. So, but let's assume 7. It then spawns Cataclysm for 2 turns. Well, that's 6 points, assuming that your opponent has units on the board. So the floor is technically 7, but more realistically 13 for 12, and then a timer effect that needs to either be locked or completely stopped. Damage all enemy units by 1. This will tick in between rounds. It will also not reset. This is the kind of card that if it sticks and it ticks, it's gonna be nutty. There are a couple of other balance changes later on that make me think that this could actually be kind of good in a list for a bit of fun. If you're looking to compete for the top 64, well, you're probably not looking to me for hints and tips. So, if you're looking to actually enjoy yourself and make some fun decks, interesting. All I'm saying. Synthesis Blaze. Now, this one is a huge change. I think this one ends up being the one you see more in... You will see it in all-in dragon decks for sure, because of course it's a dragon, but I think you're going to see this in more decks than perhaps people are crediting it with. But to Synthesis Blaze, it is now just 1 base power, but of course has lineage, so it's going to be a 2, minimally. And is 12 provisions, and I hear you saying, Lionheart, that's terrible. 2 for 12? Oh! Well, you'd be wrong. Because while in hand, deck, or on the battlefield, whenever an enemy unit is destroyed or banished during your turn, it boosts itself by 1. This is the finisher that control decks have been looking for a while, potentially. And I'm gonna clue you in to how I'm using dragons. We haven't got to the others yet. Scoia'tael Precision Strike with these dragons and the ones coming in the next slide. Think about it. Every time I remove a unit, whether I'm using Simless and then all the waylays, or I'm using my leader ability, whatever I'm using, one of the dragons, the synthesis boosts. Think about... There's so many ways that this could potentially be great. 12 provisions is expensive, but for a control deck to have a potentially great final play, it's tasty. That's all I'm saying. Whether I'm right or not, we'll see how the meta evolves, but I think there are a couple of control decks across the meta that will look at this and think, I can now be low unit, and this could actually... Maybe I'm wrong. Either way, I like the change. I'm not going to lie. Next, Mörterbrach. This one also has lineage, and it loses 1 power, but so lineage effectively weighs that up, but it goes from 7 all the way up to 12 as well. As I mentioned earlier, lots of very high provision dragons here. We'll go through them all, and then I'll touch on that. But you can see, it's now a dragon tutor, so draw a dragon and move a card from your hand to the bottom of your deck. This is definitely only going in Shock Horror dragon decks. So, it's hand fix to pull a dragon and get rid of Misk 4 provision rubbish, which you're going to probably need if you're trying to run all the dragons because they're very expensive. It also has the order ability, damage an enemy unit by 1, charge based, and it gains charges based on your lineage. So, feasibly speaking, you're probably running 5-6 dragons in a list with Mörterbrach. It will count itself. So it is going to be potentially, let's say, 7 or 8 base power, or 7 or 8 power on the board, with an order ability that can do another 4 damage, and its hand fix, giving you another In a world where an all-in dragon deck exists, this card is definitely one you're running. Are you running it outside of an all-in dragon deck that's probably not tier 1? No, of course you're not. But I like that this exists, and I think it's decent. I really do. Now we have our first non-lineage dragon, and it is a rework to Saskia. Now make sure you understand this is Saskia, the original version, the one that I have been crying out to be changed for a while. This is really good. This is a very strong card. No provision change here, no lineage, but a base power buff. And you're thinking, well, what did this card do again? Isn't this roughly what it did before? It used to have Harmony on the card, but it's counter synergy for Harmony. Spawns, right? Don't worry. It still does exactly what it used to do with a base power more, but there's more, because now, based on what you spawn, Saskia will gain one of the 3 order abilities to spawn either a Waylay, a Tempering, or a Dryad's Caress. This is a fantastic card. It's great value in most lists, most Squirtle lists, I'm going to be completely honest. It's also brilliant for your all-in dragon deck, because of course it buffs all of your lineage cards, counts as a dragon, is tutorable by Murtabrak, and is fantastic mid-range points in what is otherwise a quite control and removal heavy set of cards. Yes, it goes into the all-in dragon deck. There is no question, in my mind, that that is the case. So, these changes to dragons, right? There aren't too many dragons in the game. The ones we've seen, I like the reworks of. They are very expensive, but I do think in a very polarized list for Precision Strike, for instance, I think it will do well. I think if you're running pretty much all the dragons, you're running something like an Ike of Denazil, because at 8 provisions, why wouldn't you run something that has Zeal remove tall card? You know, it feels like a must. Then probably Simless, Waylays, and the ability to replay them. So you can't fit the scenario in, and you've got a lot of 4 provision stuff in the middle there. Is it going to be world beating? No. Is it going to be good and able to win matches? Yes. I think what I will do is I will play it on patch day, and you can come and watch and check it out live on twitch.tv/Lionheart. How does that sound? Hopefully it sounds good. So, what I'm going to say now is, next slide. This one, I like. This is a set of changes that you've probably been hoping for in some cases, and might be surprised in others. This one, the Drakenborg change, is the big one. Now, this was a card that I was really worried about early on. I even made a deck video on how to beat it. It is getting in my opinion, a buff, in theory. The list that existed last season that was basically Dwimbiandra spam was horrible. I saw people reacting to this thinking, ah, the whole card's been deleted. Because, of course, now the order ability gives vitality based on the buff. So much slower. The summoned unit no longer loses its boost. So that's great for this. This just became an amazing 8 provision tutor and thinning card. Inside the version of the Shoop Erland kind of carryover deck, or even in NR Knights, this is kind of good. This now Drakenborg, obviously the all-in abusive list is gone. I don't think anybody's going to be crying about that. I think that's great. I think this version of Drakenborg is a great version of Drakenborg, and it's one that I am very, very excited to see if it's going to find any play or not. I think it's better than people will see on initial. And actually, probably how I'd have liked Drakenborg to be released. Doesn't mean I don't want Dwimbiandra reworked still. I still think she should, because each time we introduce what could be an interesting card, she is the problem. Acid Spit. 2 provision buff. Love it. I like Acid Spit. I want aggressive Araka Swarm to be good. Acid Spit helps that. Also, if I may be indulged to go back here to my friend, Synthesis Blaze, imagine a world where you're setting up a delightful Glusty Warp. Okay? Big old Glusty and Araka Swarm, and you've used your Acid Spit and everything's won, and nom nom nom. Amazing. Love it. So does Synthesis Blaze. All of a sudden, we have a round 3 card as well. Just a thought. Just a thought. Kraken. The ability is the same, but it's changed so that it jumps back at the end of this turn rather than instantly. There were a couple of issues where basically it wasn't jumping back properly. That's been fixed. Casimir Bassi. These 2 changes I actually think are pretty huge. Casimir's now trades up to Heatwave at a floor point. So he is a 6 for 11 still, but he now also spawns as explosive as he did, and he has the 3 profit, so his floor is already better. Explosives getting this double buff is huge because you can have 1 more of them on board, and they do more damage. All of a sudden, especially when you see the other changes to Syndicate's typical lists, I think Casimir now finds a good slot into kind of that high provision, but I'm not sure what I want to do with it space, and we may finally see it being worth creating a list around him now to get that maximum value from him, because his floor is better. As I say, trades up Heatwave, that sounds amazing as a high provision card. That's kind of where you want to be. And it's also terrifying in the long round. So far, honestly, I'm loving the changes. So far. Here is where the controversy kicks in, potentially. I don't think it's unfair to say that some people are fed up of Golden Nekker. And all of these changes are designed to target the Golden Nekker archetype. First is Roach. It is now 10 provisions. You can't play it in Golden Nekker. I heard people today say that they felt this was unnecessary and the card's not very good. I disagree. Roach at 10 provisions is a fantastic card. Roach thins a card for you and gives you tempo in a crucial moment, usually in a round 1 as a result. It's an amazing card at 10 provisions. It was 10 provisions before. It being outside of the Golden Nekker range does hurt Golden Nekker decks. Roach is still a fantastic option in that slot, in my opinion. So it is what it is. Vivaldi Bank. My least favourite devotion tutor of all time because of the whole Schrodinger's coin burst paradox where I have to hope that it's at a certain place in my last night. Anyway, this also is 10 provisions, no longer available in Golden Nekker Syndicate. But it does gain an extra coin of profit, which makes it actually better in standard devotion, I think. Because now you're minimally seeing 5 cards all the time. It also makes it a little bit more complex to play because it's easier to over-profit with this card. So I'm torn on it because I've never really liked the card in reality, but it does make Golden Nekker Syndicate significantly less consistent, and I am curious to see how last season's Tier 1 list adapts and survives, or does it at all, and do we replace it with a non-Golden Nekker Syndicate now? Quite possibly. But the biggest one by far, Skellige Pirates Golden Nekker no longer exists as far as I'm concerned, because Magic Compass is now 10 provisions. I might be wrong here. I'm not sure you play Magic Compass in a non-Golden Nekker list. It cheats the provisions. But at 10 provisions now, I'm not sure why I would run it. I'd have to thin a lot, which means I have to run the discard package. And that's not consistent necessarily. It's not as easy as it was with the Golden Nekker list. The synergy just isn't there. I'm not convinced this is great. I agree Compass was a phenomenally powerful card, and I get people were fed up of it. I would have liked to see something, albeit it is a little bit wordy and confusing, I guess, that if you could trigger Compass for the create a legendary, it was a 9 provision legendary if you had no cards in hand, 10 provision legendary with 1, 11 with 2, so that it wasn't just I'm going to slam a win condition card last turn and right? But either way, what do you think about this? I have always been in the position where I never want to see a card nerfed or an archetype nerfed to the point where it's not played. And I feel like we're at a risk of heading in that direction with Golden Nekker. The idea being, if we reduce the options for Golden Nekker, it will get worse. I don't mind balancing it. I would like to see Golden Nekker instead itself go up to 10, 11, even 12 provisions, but gain a keyword that means it can be played in 9 provision or lower decks and make that ability be 9 provisions or cards with the Golden Nekker keyword. That way you could give it to Siri Nova. Long term, it would also be better for Gwentfinity because we could still actually tweak these cards directly without having to think outside the box and nerf cards that maybe don't deserve it on their own right. Just my take on it, but that is what it is. There are also some meta changes as well. And these are interesting. A couple of the top two are the big ones, of course. Saskia Commander. The all-thinning, all-destroying Saskia Commander just got double nerfed. And I think this one's a bit overdue, so I'm happy to see it. Now it's only 3 base power. Makes it vulnerable to a lot of additional ways of being removed. We already saw in a competitive scene, they'd evolved their Harmony list to re-include Simless and double backup plan so that it could kill the opponent Saskia in an intentional mirror. Now, various different things can kill it as well. Pred Dive is basically a guaranteed target for it. Nilfgaard, Spy, can also do it. It's a lot more vulnerable. It's also provision costs more. What isn't on this slide, however, is the encouragement for us to play Harmony still, rather than Guerrilla Tactics, Shiru, and Harmony. Because Carixis just got a 2 provision buff. It's now only 11 provisions. Maybe it's time to pull out actual Call of Harmony again. Blood Money gets a 1 provision nerf, very well deserved. And some interesting Nilfgaard changes. Rot Tosser, all of a sudden, is charge-based. Okay, we could have a lot of Rot Tossers. They're going to be cows everywhere. Interesting. You'll notice that the Combat Engineer is no longer a soldier to prevent spammy interactions with things like Ramon to replay and replay and replay. Very, very nicely caught to prevent that. I think it's fair to say archetypes where you just replay bronze, the same bronze over and over again, are really tedious. No one likes them. Reavers! And the less we get of that kind of thing, the better. Also, the Mangonel here as well. Zeal, order, damage an enemy unit by 1. Each spying unit adjacent to it, increase the damage by 1, charge 1. Interesting change to Mangonel. I think it's decent. I think it's okay. There are a couple of additional changes as well that I am going to grab for you quickly. The Kikimore Worker no longer has the melee condition. So it's no longer, its ability is no longer tied to melee. It only gained armor on melee for some reason. Very historic. It no longer does. So I'm really pleased to see that. Additionally, Inspired Zeal, the leader ability for Northern Realms, can now target non-Northern Realms units, but it won't give them Zeal. It'll just buff them. Some people might say, well, why? Why would you need to do that? Good for consistency, for the longevity of Gwent. Carapace can do it. It kind of makes sense that Inspired Zeal can. I'm all right with that. Arguably the biggest change. It's not. The Mahakam Defender. The card that I have called Hammer Dryad for a while. You know the one, if it was inspired, it would just continue to boost itself by 1. It doesn't do that now. If it's barricaded, it boosts by 1, fitting into the Dwarven archetype effectively. 2 other little changes to talk to you about as well. We'll go into Skellige. Coral, discard package. She is back to 8 provisions. And the reason for this, if you're looking to run the discard package, that means Magic Compass now, again. That provision was aimed at Golden Necker, even though Magic Compass took it. Giving it back to the discard package, Coral is the piece that is almost always, and realistically always, going to be in that package. So they gave the provision back to that. And Dagger Two Blades. A card that, honestly, you might be thinking to yourself, what does Dagger Two Blades do? Well, it's the old Greatsword, effectively, right? It is old Dagger Two Blades. He is now 9 provisions. Dagger and Okvis could become very good friends, that's all I'm saying, but maybe we see a new iteration of Skellige that ends up going down the damage route, ends up going a little bit more aggressive in a different way. Our friend Dagger. Who knows? But what I do know is that this definitely shakes up the competitive end of the meta. Both of the best lists that have been around for a while, taking sizable nerfs. It's not just that they won't exist in the same way, but as a result, the lists that couldn't exist because they did now become more viable. Top that off with some interesting tweaks to try and encourage a bit of a greedier version of Harmony, trying to bring in Araka Swarm back and make it a little bit more aggressive, and the addition of reworked dragons. I think this is going to be really interesting, and the pro players I have seen discussing this were very excited to see the competitive meta change. What do you think? As I mentioned earlier, our friends at Million Pugs are giving away pugs through my channel. You can use the link in the description to sign up for Million Pugs, and you can win 1,000 pugs on me just for commenting down below, letting me know what your favorite card change is. So please do that. And honestly, I'm just curious. If you've got a deck in mind, I'm also interested as well. So please let me know, and whether that's in Twitch, on my Discord, or in the comment section. As always, you know I love to hear it. I appreciate you being here. Nice to have you in Gwent. I am hyped. I hope you are too. My friends, I will see you on the ladder. If I don't see you anywhere else, I'll see you here. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye.